Hey guys, Assalamu alaikum, welcome, buenos dias, guten tag, Assalamu alaikum, shalom, bonjour, konnichiwa. Welcome back to the SOS podcast with me, Jubair, and Zaynul Abidin. And this week we are talking about role models. Takes us a little while to get into it, but the first bit is pretty interesting for you guys who are interested in nutrition and working out. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so you and your missus went out for dinner yesterday, yeah?
Yeah.
Are you tired?
No.
That was a proper lion yawn, bro.
Bro, I went to the gym. I had a good workout.
What'd you do?
I done legs.
Leg day today, yeah?
And then I haven't done legs in a while.
Yeah. How's your knees?
Yeah, that's the reason why. Yeah, it was alright today actually. And then I went and had a flipping hot bath, bruv. Not bath, bro. Shower, innit?
Yeah.
Didn't want to come out.
So did you do squats today?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I funnily enough, today was leg day as well for me, and my left knee's hurting.
My left knee is like knackered as well.
But I didn't feel it in the squats. I felt it more in namaz, in prayer.
Oh God.
Yeah, and it's the one thing I've been going on about it for ages and ages, like trying to find something to eat that will help supplement it and, you know, give it the right nutrients to like be strong and healthy. And then also the squats were in actually aid of having strong legs for, you know, old age.
Yeah.
And now I feel like, you know, is the squats actually making it worse?
Squats could make it worse, yeah.
Yeah, so worry.
Especially if you're, you know, if there's acute pain,
Mm.
you know, you should really arrest it.
Rest it.
Yeah.
For how long?
I don't know. Until the pain goes.
I feel like also I can potentially take stuff out of my diet that might. I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but I've been listening a lot to Joe Rogan, and he's always talking about how, you know, when you take out certain things from your diet, it will reduce inflammation because there's certain foods that are inflammatory foods.
Yeah.
And we're in a constant state of inflammation because we're just always eating that stuff, and you don't realize it until you take it out, and then you feel so much better.
Yeah.
So the thing he was talking about mostly was like refined carbs and that. But then I love refined carbs. Just love it so much, bro. Like pasta, bread. It's all the best stuff. What do you do?
Oh no, man.
What's life if you can't eat pasta and bread?
You got to eat pasta and bread, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think yeah, just eat pasta and bread, man.
So don't take, because I want to test it. I want to take it out and see, does it at least make a bit of a difference?
Yeah.
Then I can know, like after, say, 2 weeks, a month of doing it, didn't work, go back to eating it.
You know, it's actually interesting because cancer is, you know, it produces a massive inflammatory response. Well, it could, but there's no correlation between food and the likelihood of you getting cancer and stuff like that.
Okay.
Like, for example, I mean, well, it's strange because I don't know if I told you, like polyunsaturated fat increases the likelihood of breast cancer.
Increases?
Yeah.
So what foods is that?
Like olive oil and stuff like that. Polyunsaturated. The stuff that you would say, oh, that is sick stuff, man. Let's drink it. Let's put it through our eyes.
But how do they know? Like, did they do like control tests and everything, and they found that it's still?
I can't remember the study.
Okay.
But it was one of the assignments that I done during my masters, and it was on food and cancer.
And is it any olive oil or?
So polyunsaturated is
All olive oil.
Olive oil could be one of those. Yeah.
So even extra virgin olive oil is...
Yeah, that's even more polyunsaturated.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
when I read that, I was quite shocked. So it's strange because there's a lot of things that we probably know or we would say is healthy, and they could.
No, but the other thing is that... Sorry to, like, question you, because I
Yeah,
love
that's fine,
olive
bro.
oil. And you know when you come attacking olive oil, bro, you better bring your A game.
Yeah,
You know?
well, I just said it off the top of my head, innit?
Yeah.
I would go and find this study now, bring it to you, innit, bruv?
Yeah. No, because basically, I know that there is something that I've heard from doctors where after it's been heated or cooked, then these fats are dangerous. But when you just like dash a little bit of olive oil on your, not a little bit, like dash, like, you know, copious amounts of olive oil on your food, it's actually really good in that form. But after you cook it and heat it, that's when it starts
But that's
forming
not
like...
just olive oil.
That's
So
other...
technically, if you want to heat anything or you want to use a fat to cook something,
Yeah.
then you should be using like lard.
Ghee and
Yeah.
like the...
Because that doesn't become carcinogenic.
Yeah.
Carcinogenic.
Well, yeah, this is it.
Carcinogenic.
So maybe that's
So-
where they looked at this, like the olive oil is in its heated state and not in its, and they
Oh,
just
maybe I have to
they
look at
just like, you know, with reckless abandon, they just said, oh yeah, olive oil gives you cancer.
I remember I passed that.
Irresponsible, very irresponsible.
I hope I passed that. I did pass that assignment.
You passed it, yeah.
Yeah.
So I know you're,
It was
you're
a
trying to give
presentation.
yourself credibility against the olive oil, but
No, it was just an interesting thing. Like I was quite shocked by it, that it causes breast cancer, or it increases the likelihood of breast cancer.
okay.
It's quite difficult because there isn't much studies out there in terms of food and the effects food has on cancer and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Am I just twisting the mic round a bit? So, this way? Yeah,
This
yeah,
way?
no, back a bit. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
You gonna say something?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, so I just love listening to Joe Rogan, bruv. He's for so much guidance. And the mad thing is, so okay, we're talking about role models this week, innit? And I bring up Joe Rogan, at least for me, and many other people, because in him, I tell you what I see, okay?
He's your role model, isn't he?
No, I'm not going to say he's my role model, but, you know...
Would you like to rub butter on him?
I think he's already got butter on his head. He's got a shiny head, man. But yeah, no, okay, let me say, basically, with people like Joe Rogan, and even like guys like Jocko Willink, what you have in them is a recognition that intellectual pursuits are really important. Yeah?
Mm.
Right? They want to learn, they want to grow, they want to understand, but at the same time, you also get all the traits of masculinity that these days seems to be almost like, there seems to be like an attempt to rub it out, you know, like what traditional masculinity is, you know, like being strong, being able to fight, being large, you know, being like not caring what people think, you know, those things that traditionally are associated with masculinity, at least in the West. And so in someone like Joe Rogan, when I hear him say something about olive oil or, you know, like cutting out carbs, I'm like, yeah, man, I should do that. It's crazy because it's almost like I don't even need to check to see if he's right. Sometimes I'll talk to you, like you've heard me ask you, oh yeah, bruv, is this true or is that true? But if he says it, there is an element of, you know, this, I mean, the more I talk, the more I realize that it sounds like a religion or a cult, like the cult of Joe Rogan. But what I'm trying to say ultimately is that when he says something, I'm like, yeah, it must be true, or he's cool. He would know what he's talking about, you know. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you felt that way about any? I'm not even gonna say any guy, anyone, where they have something over you, they have like a spell over you. They've got a spell over you where they say something, you're like, yeah, he's a cool guy, man, or lady. It could be a lady
Sound
as
like
well.
a groupie, bruv.
I think I'm a bit of Joe Rogan groupie.
I can't say no to that question because I'm sure in my life at some point I've become, I don't think I've become obsessed with anyone though.
No?
I hope I haven't become obsessed. No. But it was like, I've admired people. I can't say, of course, I've been influenced, but I can't say that I ever thought this is my role model. This is the person I want to be.
What, with anyone?
With anyone, yeah.
Oh.
I think it's because I was just a bum. I just wanted to, sleep.
Just relax.
Yeah.
No, because last time we were talking about that person who you made reference to, who is someone that you know, young man or young lady, who was going going through difficulties and was going through issues. And when you look at their life, you may see that there's I wouldn't say an absence, because you're someone in their life who I would say could be a really good positive role model.
Oh God, that's frightening.
That's frightening, yeah, that is. But if you look at some of the circumstances they're in, I mean, there's more to their particular situation, like with the fragmentation of the parents.
Yeah, I see where you're going, and it's quite difficult, isn't it? Is what's trumping? Is it the trauma, or is it the lack of an appropriate role model?
Yeah.
Because we all model, don't we? As children, we all model other people's behavior.
Yeah.
And interestingly, my wife told me, she's a teacher, and so she teaches young children, and I think I should know this, in reception, I think. It's reception. How old are reception children?
Like four
or five, right?
Yeah.
So there's 3 classes, 3 different classes, and she's noticed that all three different classes, as a whole, they're different in terms of their behavior. So for some reason, her class, they just like to make noises. So there's one child that would just sit there and he'd be like, Nino, 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 and then everyone does it.
Yeah.
Yep. So she has one child that is just a rebel, and all of them
become rebels.
Rebels.
Yeah.
And recently she's telling me that they're all acting like dogs. So they're like, ruff, ruff, ruff. And she's like, no, get up. So that's her class. They're very, I don't know what to call them. But then there's another class who they're very quiet. Every single student in that class they're all quiet. And there's another class where there's a few girls that say certain things like, Miss, that's beautiful. Miss, you're looking beautiful. And all the children now use phrases like that. They use adjectives whenever they're saying something. You use adjectives like that, like beautiful writing, and and she's said it's crazy how children model on the behavior. You can see it. Like, obviously theorists have said it for a very long time, but when you see it in reality, it's quite interesting. So going back to this young chap, I don't see because a role model can be positive and negative.
Yeah.
Right. He hasn't picked up any behaviors. I mean, he has certain kind of traits of this person, but he doesn't have that type of behavior which has led to his trauma. Having said that it's probably an exception, because we all know that usually people who have been abused when they're younger, they become abusers when they grow older.
Yeah.
So in his case, I don't know, is it the lack of is it the lack of a good role model, or is it the trauma? Because I think on the other side, he has a brilliant role model who is his his
other parent.
Yeah, the other parent.
Yeah.
And he does have he has behaviors, behaviors of interaction with others, and they're imitated from the other parent.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe it's a situation where things are compounding. You know what I
I
mean?
would say so. Yeah,
I mean, the other thing is, like historically, youngsters would have, say, like whether it's soldiers in the army to look up to, or they would have like, and it could be family members, or it could be people on TV, like heroes of certain battles that people talk about, like in ancient times. They'd say, oh, Maximus. I'm just saying the name of the guy out of Gladiator. He probably wasn't real, but you know what I mean, like. Certain people in history who, a Hercules character or whatever, people aspire to be like, but then at the same time, there's also stable family situations and that. I mean, this whole thing, like, I kind of wanted to talk about it because we were talking about it before, noticing it amongst relatives of ours, sometimes young men, sometimes young women, where there was definitely some dysfunction in their behavior and in their development, and there's certainly like things that I know in myself that there are deficits and there are deficiencies, but in these particular cases, it was at least the ones that I brought, like that I mentioned to you about, and I'll go into more detail. There seemed to be a lot of deficiencies because definitely the absence of a strong male role model, I think. So, there could certainly be families where there is a father in the house, but they're not fulfilling that role for these people, for these youngsters. Or there could be an absence of a father figure because of fragmentation of marriage, because of abuse, because of criminal behavior that's put them in prison or whatever. But in the case of the young people that I mentioned to you about, so I'll give you a description of these young men. They're both young men. So one is someone who like has finished his education but is struggling to find work, and as far as his personality goes, is he's like almost like a hypochondriac. He's not really being given that much time in terms of parental attention, like, okay, what are you struggling with in terms of your schoolwork, what are you struggling with in terms of like, okay, do we need to take you to a gym, or do we need to take you to martial arts to toughen you up, or what are you into, even like what are your hobbies, and let's support you in that. And what it's led to is like he's finished his education now, he's struggling to find work, no one really seems to interested within his own immediate sphere of like family to get him into anything. And so he's like, I can see it happening, he's just becoming a write-off, like a complete, like, he's not going to amount to anything, and he's only 20. Do you know what I'm saying? How sad is that? At that early stage, he's being made to become like made to be perceived by the rest of the people in his wider circle as someone who's not gonna amount to anything or worth anything. So when I look at him, I almost feel like, well, definitely I can see where there's problems, because his father is of a generation that's it makes this big gap for him to be able to to bridge that gap. It's going to be very difficult because of language. I mean, the other thing to say is he's from a Bengali family, and his parents speak a different language to him, culturally are from a different culture, you could say, and so that's difficult. And then the other thing is, there's he mostly has sisters. He has one other brother, and he's got the same issues as well, and so it's incredibly sad to see, but my take on it is that's where it stems from, is not having, and I'm not going to say it's a father figure issue, because he's got a dad who's worked hard to support the family, but I feel like there's no strong male role models that have been around enough to really to provide like a proper support network for him.
Yeah. I was while you was talking, and I was just thinking, do you think he's been disregarded because of this idea of what a man should be through, you know, this macho big guy that can fight and be strong and, is going to strive to gain intelligence, etc. Do you think that is leading people to disregard those people who haven't been able to adopt these types of characteristics because they lack a person who can model that for them?
Yeah. So do you almost mean like in a kind of like toxic masculinity and yeah. Well, I think that's partially true. I remember. I don't know how much you and your missus watched it, but I remember when Ertugrul came out.
Yeah.
And I heard, like, whether it was work colleagues or it was relatives, female, who had watched it and said, "Oh, there's no men like that anymore." Like watching Ertugrul, and they're always talking about what's that big guy called? Turgut, yeah. There's a hench guy in it called Turgut, and
Okay.
when these women are watching it, obviously they're loving these guys, especially when they got their tops off. You know what I'm saying?
Oh God.
But I heard it, bro, and I was like, all right, thanks.
Did you feel inadequate?
No, I don't feel inadequate because
felt
I know
inadequate,
it's a
didn't you?
TV show. You know what I mean? Like,
That is how
no,
you...
I promise. No, that's not how
that is how you...
rationalized it.
Like, it's all right. It's fake anyway. It's fake anyway.
No. I can tell you that watching it, I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. But there wasn't ever a time where I thought, oh no, I'm threatened, because these guys are actors. And then when you look at their Instagrams and whatever, you can see that they live a certain lifestyle that is completely not what these women are idealizing and romanticizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the character on screen is a complete fictionalization. Yeah, like especially Turgut, who is hench and strong, and then he's a victim, but he misses his lover, and
Oh my God.
do you know what I'm saying? Like, women love it, but in terms of
What is it? They call it something, man. Forget it.
but yeah, like he someone like that. I'm sure there are guys like that who exist, but yeah, I think you might be right. I think
Because yeah, go on. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, when I look at that,
Yeah.
and I look at that particular relative of mine, who fits, is the description is the opposite of that. I can see how people will be like, oh man, he's not tough, and he's not, but I think maybe like the whole thing of masculinity needs to be addressed, and maybe we need to look at like how there are, like people fit all different types of descriptions, and with those assets and those strengths, they're able to do amazing things. Like if you look at Gandhi, not a big strong dude in the traditional sense, but in terms of like what he's attributed like with the independence of India from the British Empire, like wow, and of course that's the accumulation of loads of people working hard towards that, but he was the champion of non-violence. So it's,
and if we take our heritage, meaning Abu Bakr and Umar, looking at those two men, Umar being this heavy, tough, no nonsense type of guy. The type of guy that any man would, have a man crush on right now, right? And then looking at Abu Bakr, who's on the other side of the spectrum, and what they achieved in terms of, let's talk about, let's put it into context in terms of being big and strong and etc. Abu Bakr achieved as much as Umar on the battlefield, and the turmoil that he kind of resolved is regarded to be one of the biggest achievements of post Prophet ﷺ's era. so yeah, is difficult. Like for me, my wife, you know, she is sick because she looks up to me sometimes. Other times she doesn't. But she says to me that, oh, I just think that, you know, you're just, no one can beat you up. I was like, oh God. And she knows that obviously, you know.
Did you tell her that I took you down once?
No, I didn't.
In the masjid, I wrestled you to the ground.
What was well, how about the other day? You were like,
no, I was tired. I fought.
You were like, bro, it's fine. And you just, as soon as I came turning to you, were just tapping.
That day, I had fought the gym leader. Okay, yeah, that guy's a beast. He was just throwing me around for jokes. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
But you know, having that type of, you know, what I'm talking about, what I'm trying to say is having that type of looking up to someone looking up to you. You know, I've been traveling with my wife, and you know, we've traveled to you know, we've done multi-city traveling, and I've noticed that every time she'll just look for me to kind of guide us through the, you know, situation.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times I don't have a clue what I'm doing. And it's really scary. It's actually really scary. And I can see why, you know, this macho kind of mentality is leading this, well, you know, it has led to the phenomena of suicide being a kind of, men are at a higher risk of suicide. And that's only because they can't speak about the weaknesses that they are feeling.
Yeah, which is a shame, because if you look historically at the best men, or let's, you know, take it back to our heritage, the best of men, the Prophet ﷺ. This is a man who like wrestled the best of wrestlers in his day and floored him 3 times. Yeah, this is also a man who led armies.
Yeah,
but at the same time, this is a man who, you know, like had intimate moments with his wife.
Yeah,
had moments where he cried.
Yeah, yeah,
and moments where he shared his emotions with his closest friends.
Yeah,
and wasn't afraid to express what needed to be expressed, especially given that he had the hardest of all jobs. So obviously I'm talking about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and how, you know, he was both physically strong, but also he was emotionally intelligent.
Yeah,
you know, and I think you're right. There is definitely in modern society there's like, was it like that, like bro culture and like laddishness and toxic masculinity, absolutely, which exists. And for that relative of mine, I would be worried about him going into environments like that where he's made to feel inadequate. Not even that he himself doesn't feel inadequate, but like people pick on him and stuff. And real men wouldn't do that.
No.
But at the same time, I do think, like, don't you think? I mean, I definitely feel like the more I think about it at this stage in my life, and I've got kids, I do feel like strength, both physical and mental, is a part of masculinity.
Yeah, I think it's...
You don't have to be the strongest,
yeah,
but I do think it's like something that you should factor in like when trying to develop yourself.
Yeah,
you know, like the strong believer is better than the weak believer is something that comes from our heritage, and that is actually specifically to do with physical strength, not even like, you know.
You see, this is like I'm agreeing with you on this, but this is the thing, isn't it? Like a lot of us will pass that type of modeling onto our sons. But for some reason, we may stop that type of modeling with our daughters. We want them to be timid and, you know,
which
pretty.
I think is wrong.
And
I do think that's wrong.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a balance where, you know, your son doesn't grow up to become, you know, and he's overcompensating for something,
being a meathead or something.
Yeah, and you know, he just isn't functional. He's just one-sided, very reduced in terms of, you know, who he is as a person.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand that. I think to make a human being, it takes a lot. And as a parent, I can't imagine, you know, what, you know, the things that you have to think about and etc. But you know, being a good model for, you know, for your for your children is daunting. I think it's daunting. So,
It is
I
daunting,
mean,
yeah.
how do you do it, and how do you think? How would you like your children to grow up?
It's hard, bro, because you're right. It is daunting, and you're just constantly worried that your inadequacies are gonna mess them up, like that.
Yeah,
You just,
yeah.
or
And
like,
you can make a mistake.
You can make mistakes. Like I make loads of mistakes. I still remember with Sophia, my eldest, years ago, bro. Like, well, when I say years ago, it's like not that long ago. It's about 3 or 4 years ago. She was 2 or 3, and she wasn't going to bed. And at this time, me and my missus had learnt about this particular method of getting kids to learn to sleep in their own beds.
Okay.
Now, I will say it's a very Western, like in its process and practice and its philosophy, it's a very Western system. You'll know what I mean after I explain it. So the idea is that you get your kids to sleep in their own beds in their own room, and they can cry as much as they want that first
God.
night. Yeah, like that first night they're gonna cry loads, and you just the whole process is you can go in there and you can like comfort them a little bit, but they have to stay in there. Yeah, and they're gonna cry like mad. And then the second night they're gonna cry a little bit less, but they'll still cry and want to come out. And you just go in there. You can comfort them a tiny bit, but they've got to stay in there. And then by the third night they might moan a bit, but whatever. And after 4 or 5 days, it's Whereas, as far as I know from a Bengali culture and some other Eastern cultures, like the whole thing of making kids sleep in their own rooms is not really a thing. They sleep with parents. Oftentimes people in Bangladesh like didn't even have big houses big enough to like have all these different rooms and beds and whatever. Everyone would sleep together, or at least the newborn would sleep and stay with the parents until they themselves are happy to sleep in another room. So we tried to make her do that, and on the first night it was like as hard for us as it was for her. Well, probably not, but it was very difficult. And I remember yelling at her, like, you're gonna stay in this bed, okay? Do you understand? You're growing up now. And I remember she was like, because I raised my voice.
Yeah.
She was she got really frightened, and she didn't cry. And that's still to this day I think about. I'm like, wow, she was really crying. Then she stopped crying. Yeah, that's very hard for a kid to do. Something must have scared her, to do that.
I find that, like, I got lots of nieces and nephews, and I find that, like, I feel so guilty afterwards.
Yeah.
The fact that they are so hurt and they're so scared of you that they've just, although they're so hurt by whatever is going on, they have stopped because they're so scared of you. And I think that is, bruv, I'm so sorry, but that is just brutal.
No, it was brutal. Even to this day, I think about it and I just feel so bad about it. So now,
do you beat yourself up?
Like self-flagellate.
Yeah, I think you should.
No, I probably should, honestly, but I don't.
I could do it for you. We could do it
I know
now.
you'd be the first to volunteer for that job. But yeah, so now I'm like overcompensating the other way a little bit. But having said that, for example, when we moved to Leicester, she didn't want to do martial arts, but she had to do martial arts. Yeah. Like I felt for her growing up, that was an important part of her development, like physical activity, knowing her own body, knowing her own strength, knowing that if something was to happen, she would know her body enough to know what to do in that situation. I feel like, and myself included and many people, it's not that you want to create like a martial arts expert or anything. It's just that you want someone or yourself to know your body enough to know in a situation what you're capable of. So if you're in a situation where you need to run, you run. If you're in a situation where you can stand up for justice, you do that. Because oftentimes an idiot who does not know what they're capable of would fight when they shouldn't fight, and they would run when they shouldn't run.
Like me.
I would never say that about you, but
Thank you.
And I would say the same goes. The opposite goes for my son, where he just naturally he loves like all that fighting and stuff. But I try and have times where he has, I wouldn't call it feminine time, but soft, quiet time, which is normally what you would associate with the yang of the yin, or the feminine to the masculine, where I sit with him with a book quietly and we just read, which is the kind of stuff Sophia loves. He doesn't love it as much, but he does, he does like that stuff. But yeah, it's very difficult, and I think in large part because there was absences in the right the right opposite to balance out the yin and yang, or the equilibrium of what young people need in the case of these relatives of mine.
Mm.
This is now what you've got, where people have like anxiety issues, and they have like massive self-esteem issues.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's like I was talking to you earlier about some of the stuff I've seen on what it can lead to. So should I read some of it, or do you want to say something before I show you these studies?
Can I need to use the toilet.
Do you need to use the toilet?
Yeah.
So what should I
Shall
do?
we just pause it and then?
Okay, let's pause.
Because bruv.
Okay, go.
So bad.
Hold on. Hello. And we're back.
We are back. Oh, that's one of the best feelings ever, when your bladder is full, and then you like release.
Let forth the unleash the dam.
I thought I'll manage to do it, and then I was here twiddling my toes like.
You just waiting for me to finish talking, didn't it?
Come on, please.
When is he gonna stop talking? If you didn't drink so much sparkling water, you'd be fine.
No, I haven't drank. It was the gym.
The water at the gym.
Yeah, look how much I've drank.
So like, look, you go gym, and you're someone who espouses those traits that you're saying is like, maybe you don't want to promote it too much. Like you work out.
Yeah.
You do martial arts.
Yeah.
You do. If someone like started on you in a fight, I'm sure, especially if it was something where they'd done something insulting, or I'm sure you'd fight them, bro.
I'll probably run away because I don't want to lose my job. My job depends on my.
Yeah. You took that whole. Was it that oath? What's that oath?
Oh
called?
no, we made our own one.
You got your own oath.
Yeah.
What is that oath? What's it called again?
Hippocratic oath.
Hippocratic oath. Yeah. You shouldn't do harm. You will not do harm or
Swear
something.
by. Who is it?
Hippocrates.
Yeah.
Is it
or Apollo or someone?
some Greek god?
Greek god. Yeah.
Shit, bro.
But no, not because of that. It's just it'll be on my CRB, and then I won't be able to work with patients.
Yeah. You literally have to be treating the guy that you beat up.
Yeah. But I think the reason I say is because I was in when I was younger, that was the surge of testosterone just made me I need to be like, the last samurai. Well, no, not like trying to be like the last samurai, just thinking that I'm just all hard and hard.
Yeah.
But I think it's a balance, isn't it? I think it's important. You need to let the little ballerina out now and then.
To pirouette.
Yeah.
Every now
Make
and
an appearance, bruv.
Yeah.
I honestly think. I think otherwise it's it's just not equilibrium, isn't it? And
yes,
balance,
balance.
that is what the world is. And I think all the thoughts of religion and etc. It looks for that equilibrium.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have that equilibrium, then you're imbalanced, and you're whatever part, either your mind or your body, it will snap at one point. And a lot of the times it's for example, going to the gym, and gym is actually a good example, because you see these guys, and once upon a time maybe I was one of those guys, walking around hunched like
gargoyle shape.
Looking at some sort of, I don't know, bruv.
Blanca, innit? Blanca from Street Fighter.
Blanca, yes. And then suddenly they tear their rotatory cuffs, or they tear something.
Yeah.
Because their chest is just overdeveloped and just pulling everything together. So similarly, I think with the mind I would say it will react the same way. If we are one way minded, then it gives us no room for maneuver, no room to adjust when change happens.
So you're saying basically, like, when there is an imbalance in that development, your inevitably going to have some kind of anomalous behavior that is like outrageous or shocking.
I think so.
Well, on that note, then, can I? Because I was going to tell you before you went toilet about some of this stuff I read.
It's bloody freezing in here, man.
Sorry, bro. Just tense your pecs.
Next time I'm gonna get blanket.
Get a blanket. We'll do it from your bedroom.
I'm gonna let the inner ballerina out with my blanket, like, ooh,
your little frou-frou blanket. So basically, I had previously heard about this, but I didn't know. But it is kind of confirmed. Now, firstly, let me just say that I am kind of I'm connecting the idea of stable family and having parents.
Yeah.
Not necessarily both parents, but having stable parents in the same category or in the same ballpark as role models, right?
Yeah.
So one of the thing that's common amongst school shooters, right, is that many, though not all, of the perpetrators have experienced childhood traumas, such as physical or emotional abuse, and unstable families with violent, absent, or alcoholic parents or siblings, for example. And most have experienced significant losses. So that was one of the. It's not like across the board, but it's many, though not all. So that's what they're saying in this article, which is on npr.org. And it's about school shooters and what the path to violence is. Now, that's actually linked to a particular study, which the link's there, you can have a look. But there's another article which looks at role models more specifically, and they talk about like how those kids who identify themselves as not having role models pretty much always statistically do worse in exams and school tests and things like that. Now, I don't always think that school tests are a barometer for like how well someone's doing in life. Yeah, we both know that. But there is something to be said that when like the correlation is like it's like 100% of the time it's the case that someone themselves is identifying as not having a role model, and then they're also doing poorly in school. It's not that you'd say that there's a link between, say, a lack intelligence and role models, but you could say there is certainly a connection between self-esteem and there is a connection between how someone identifies and then that relationship with how well they do in school and stuff. But I'll just quickly read you what it says on this website, which is educationandbehavior.com. And it says, sadly, many children and adolescents don't have positive role models to look up to. A 2001 study of 100,000 middle and high school students found that only around 1/4 of the students reported having a positive adult role model in their lives. This indicates that 3/4 of students either don't have someone to look up to or is making negative choices within their own life. Studies indicate that youth who look up to role models that engage in negative or risky behaviors are more likely to follow suit and eventually engage in the same risky behaviors. Research also indicates that adolescents whose only role models is an entertainer, singer, actor, are at higher risk for engaging in smoking, drug use, and fighting. Studies also show that youth are more likely to select role models who they perceive as similar to themselves. For instance, they are more likely to look up to someone of the same gender, race, and ethnicity. That last bit's interesting. Do you think that's something that we struggle with in, say, like the Asian Bengali community and then more widely speaking, the Muslim community?
In terms of gender?
Like identifying with people who they perceive similar to themselves as a role model, like, as say a Bengali person. So let's get like really granular. As a Bengali person, who do you look to as a role model? And if you can't, then as an Asian person, who do you? And then if you can't, as a Muslim, do you know what I mean? Like on like within those different categories that you might identify yourself as.
I think that's I think that's a difficult question because at what point is it? So when a child is developing, it's kind of instinct, isn't it? It'll just the nurture aspect of nature, etc. It will play its part, and a child will pick up behaviors quite instinctively and without thought, etc. And for example, when I grew up, I identified as Bengali. I knew I was Bengali.
Yeah.
Because my parents were Bengali.
Yeah.
But the question is, at any point in my life, did I feel like, well, I did actually, it wasn't just Bengali. Last time I said that my identity is Muslim, Bengali, and probably British. So I guess when in terms of role models, I think with children now it's different. It's difficult with the advent and the existence of the internet, who children role model with. For me, it was my parents, my siblings, and I'm that is who I have become. Really, I'm an extension of my family. I wouldn't say I'm vastly different from my family. I don't know what you think. Are you vastly different from your family?
No, in many ways, like I can see in myself so many traits of my dad, and then I can see in myself so many traits of my mum. So yeah, like
I don't think you thought, oh, you know what, that's a good role model, or that's a good thing to model. It was just instinctual. It just happened for you as a child.
Well, see, I don't think I said, like, when you take a role model is different to when you model a behavior, I think.
Yeah.
So when I modeled the behavior of my parents, it's not necessarily because I said, oh, like that is cool, man. Like that's So I could say that a little bit with my grandfather.
Yeah.
So my mum's father, like I'd always hear things about him, and he was always really nice to us as little kids. And when someone is nice to you as a little kid, you're just like, oh yeah, he's my favorite. But hearing things from him, from other members of the community about him, would make you think, oh, like you get a little bit pumped up, and so that, so maybe my grandfather, I could say that I like took as a role model, but otherwise it would be people like my uncle. So do you know my Shazad Mama?
Yep.
So he's someone who, like, when we were young, he was the first person to take me to the movies, to the cinema. And that, like, me now, and with what I do for a living and what I aspire to do for a living, you can see how that impacted me when this male member of our family decided to take me to the cinema. I still remember what movie it was. 101 Dalmatians, but the live action one. Like that memory, the first time I went to the cinema is still in my head. And he was also the person who took us to martial arts.
Okay.
Funnily enough. So he introduced us to, it was like freestyle. No, actually, he introduced us to two. One was, it was Kung Fu at the PCC, long time ago. And then later on, it was freestyle karate at the Kerry Center, near our house. So there's another, like, aspect where you can see where there's something that you could think, oh, that's cool, and I want to be like that. And he'd done it all his life, and he was black belt or whatever, like had high ranking.
So I like the way you've made that distinction between modeling and role models. Don't you think your early childhood modeling influences the type of role model that you choose?
How do you mean?
So, for example, if a child grew up in a family of criminals, right? And he's modeled that behavior. When he grows up, one of his role model could be a great thief, or a type of,
I see what you mean.
A gang or a gang member, etc. Do you think that's the case? I have an inclination to go towards yes. Maybe that is having an effect.
Yes and no. I mean, there's still that like dual element of whether it's, even at that early stage, there is still a distinction between modeling and role modeling. So, for example, say you're born into a family where there is no strong masculine presence, and there is an element of like wanting to cheat people and wanting to be a little bit like snaky about your behavior. And growing up, when it's too early for you to really understand what's right and wrong and what's good and bad, and you're just modeling based on what you see, you start picking those things up. I don't think after a certain age, you'll then be like, what you've modeled, you'll be like, yeah, man, I wanna be like the snakiest, weaseliest guy ever. Do you know what I mean? You like to be like, this is.
Well, what if there are people out there like that?
What, who actually look up to snaky, weaselly people?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I feel, well, when I say I don't think so, it's my opinion, but I feel like you'd be like, damn, man, like, look at me,
Yeah, but that's the thing, though, isn't it? Like, if that was the case, then there wouldn't be many people out there who are sneaky and weaselly, but there are.
No, but I think so. I think you're right in the fact that the model behavior has led them to be that way.
Yeah,
but I don't think they role model I don't think they look up to people who have that weak, negative behavior.
Okay.
I think they've modeled the behavior, absolutely right. They've taken on the traits of their parents or the people around them, and they are a product of their environment. But I still think there is like an objective truth to what an ideal is. Like there is, like for example, like if you took the characteristic of strength versus weakness, you'd always favor strength. Yeah. No one would ever say, oh no, this I like the weak guy, unless he had other characteristics that trumped the strength. Like for example, say honesty versus dishonesty. So I think if you accumulate all the best aspects of what a person could be, no one would ever say, I don't want to be like that. Unless that person was a complete douchebag,
You see, so
like if someone's kind, funny, caring, and on top of that they're strong and like handsome and physically capable, would anyone pick someone else over that person if that other person didn't have all those same,
Yeah, I know what you're asking.
Like basically, I think there is an objective standard to, not objective, we're human beings, but do you know what I mean? Like,
But my thing is when people start looking at drug dealers to be role models.
Yes, but that's a good point. You make a good point. Go on.
And that usually is the type of people who are in that environment, isn't it? Like, or they've grown up to be in that environment. Them themselves are taking drugs, or them themselves are dealing drugs. They would regard these people to be, cool guys, or that was gangster, whatever.
With like say drug dealers and criminals, there's the attraction of the rebel. Which that plays a part into it, and there's also the cultural.
But drug dealers are snaky and weaselly.
Yeah, but I think the guys who the top boys or the top guys who people look up to are generally guys who are good leaders. Or I'm not defending the behavior of these drug dealers, but like you're not gonna look up to the snakiest, weaseliest of the drug dealers. You're gonna look up to the guy who is fair with how he treats his minions or whatever, and you're gonna be looking up to the guy who he could defend himself. Like he doesn't have to rely on his money or his minions.
It just sounds like what you would do.
What?
It sounds like what you're describing to me is what Jubair would do. Jubair would not look up to the Weasley snakiest drug dealer. He will look at So does that make sense? Because what you were saying,
I'm looking at it just fully through my perspective and lens.
And what you're describing is exactly what you described at the beginning, but
of Joe Rogan.
of being strong and fair and etc. But you've just put it onto a drug dealer. Whereas majority of drug dealers, yes, some of them are you could say, upstanding, whatever.
No way. Yeah.
No, but none of them are. I would say they are. I would describe them as, please don't. I hope no drug dealers come and kill me. One day they might need my help.
There's only 10 people listening to this podcast. Maybe 11 now. But I don't think we've gained any drug dealers on our audience.
But that's I was just kind of dig in that
That
little
thought experiment.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean in terms of I do think that obviously modeling and early childhood is very important.
Yeah.
And it's the question is when does our what I was trying to say before is you have modeling, and then when, and this is probably along what you were saying, when does our higher faculty of thinking and consciousness come into action and kind of overrides this modeling,
Yeah.
and goes from, you know, criminality, for example, or having been born, you know, I have a very good example of one of my colleagues, and he was born to a single mother, had a rough childhood, didn't get GCSEs, didn't get A levels, and now he's a doctor.
That's
He's
amazing.
a very high doctor.
That's amazing.
So when was it? At what point? And is there a point where people free themselves of those shackles through? I like to think this higher faculty of thinking. You know, the thing that makes us human.
Yeah.
You know, being rational, looking at our situation and trying to change it. And you know, when is that the moment where we adopt appropriate role models, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And I think in the case of your colleague, I would be really surprised if there weren't people in... Is it a man? Is it a guy?
Yeah, he's a guy.
Yeah, so if there wasn't people in his life, men or women, who he could look up to, or at least take as mentors, and like, you know, like, I know we keep using this term and it's not a scientific term, but like take as a role model.
Yeah.
I'd be really surprised.
I think you're right.
So I think
He must have had some sort of influence, and of course, yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know if there are like cases where there are people who just literally have done it completely on their own. And I think in the case of that youngster who's in my family, I think I am gonna do my best to be as much of a part of his life as I can. You know, within, you know, like I've got to be my main concern is my kids, you know, and my wife and my parents and those people who are in my immediate circle. But then, you know, he's in my extended circle, and I think just the way that my uncle gave me time, and it wasn't like he was over all the time. It's just, you know, my dad was working, my mum was working, and so when my uncle could give me time, that little bit made the world of difference in what I got into in life, like what my interests were. Those things were shaped by that. In the case of this youngster who's my relative, he, other than gaming, he's not into anything. Yeah, there's a lot of people like that who I know.
Yeah.
Who are they're just into games. They're not into anything, or social media. And social media is not something to be into.
Maybe he has a role model. Maybe it's Ninja.
It is a ninja, yeah.
It's a ninja.
No, but that's a fictional role model. Do you know what I mean?
No, like, I'm talking about the guy Ninja, whatever.
Who's Ninja?
The gamer. It's a guy.
Oh no, I don't know. I doubt it.
You see, this is the thing, isn't it? Like, the world is widening. There isn't, you know, the role models aren't just masculine and beefed up and hardcore anymore, you know, or they're not, you know.
Which I agree with. Yeah, I think you're right. If you look at the case of the Prophet ﷺ, and you were to, if you were to model yourself on him and took him as a role model, you would be the most balanced person. Yeah.
So this is that. I guess that's the $100 million question is, who is a good role model?
Yeah, and I think in a modern society, you should have men and women who you look up to and who you respect, and so that you get a full understanding of what, you know, the range of what a human should be able to understand and believe and feel and express. But
So would you say it needs to be one person? Because for me,
Yeah.
I'm quite old and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
I've kind of realized that throughout life, people can be unpredictable and they can let you down, especially if you kind of think that they're God's gift on earth.
Yeah.
And then you realize that they can fart and, it's no Kim Jong-jun who doesn't need to use the toilet.
Does he not?
He doesn't need to use the toilet. He doesn't fart either.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry.
I mean, I wish. I bet you wish. You could do that.
Not fart.
Not fart.
I'd explode.
So yeah, in terms of, I think for me, I look up to people. I look up to people and I admire certain characteristics that they have. For example, my supervisor. I admire the fact that he's, when I was speaking to him, he was saying when he got into surgery, when the first time he got into surgery, he was, he used to go, before he would carry out a case, he would go somewhere quiet and he would go through it, visualize the operation as if he's doing it. Mm-hmm. And he was saying how surgery is about practice and accuracy, being accurate, being, perfect at what you're doing. Make sure that whatever you do it to the best of your ability. I admire that. I may not admire other things about him. Mm-hmm. For example, he's not a Muslim, so I wouldn't
take his belief system
exactly.
On. Yeah.
But that's something that I will definitely take from him. And there's another consultant that when I was on my placement, consultants are arseholes, by the way.
Okay.
But
is that just like a fact?
Not all of them.
All
so
right.
This is an example of one of those who isn't. And I remember presenting to him, and usually when you're a junior and you're presenting to a senior clinician, you're shaking, you say everything so quickly because you just think that they want everything really fast. But this guy, he was so chilled out that it was like me talking to you. That is how I felt. And I remember the first time I presented to him, he was so calm, and I got a few things wrong, but it wasn't as if I didn't get a telling off from him. Mm-hmm. And I kept going to him. So that is one thing, as a clinician, that is one thing that I would definitely take on board and have in my repertoire. Mm-hmm. That I want to be that guy in that way, in that sense. So I would want to be my clinical supervisor at the moment, if I was to do surgery, and if I was to be listening to a student or one of my juniors presenting to me, I would be like this guy here. Mm-hmm. Or if I want to be a funny guy, I would be like a funny consultant. I will be like him. And I want to be like him, this guy, because of his physical prowess. Okay. I want to be like this guy because of his intellectual prowess.
Yeah. So you want to basically have like a modular system where you take certain people for certain traits and attributes,
pick and mix
as your. But I don't disagree with that. I think that's awesome, and the fact that they're in your life as well. Yeah. Is what's really is the key. Yeah, I think for like, say again, I keep taking it back to this youngster who is a relative of mine. He didn't have these people in his, like, he didn't have access to those people, I don't think. And those who he did have access to in his life it wasn't sufficient. And, you could say, oh, well, I'm someone in his life. And I think maybe the issue there is whether or not maybe it's possible he didn't see in me the things that he would want to take as like things to model and for me to be a role model. Or it could be I just wasn't in his life enough. Someone just steps in and out of your life it's too brief that the impact is. If you were my
role model, the only role model that I had,
I'm definitely your role model.
I would be
Don't
finished,
even try it. Don't even try it. I know I'm your role model. That's what, I'm not even laughing because it's funny. I know it's true. I know it's true. Please say it on the radio or on the podcast.
What?
Just tell everyone what they know. Tell them.
Let me think of something that I would.
That is really rude.
I'm actually thinking.
That's so rude.
No, I'm not going to pump you in front of you.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, I know. But you know what? Okay, so for these people, right? I know that I'm trying to think about myself. Did I seek a good role model, or did I seek out people who had these traits, or was this kind of just, put on the plate for me? I think there was definitely an element of just spoon feeding. Like, I didn't go and seek out this consultant. By chance, he came into my life, and but the other thing is, why is it that the consultant who's very nice, the guy that I used to like presenting to, is because I knew. Why do I want to be like him? Because I know how it feels to be in a situation where a consultant is just grilling you for no reason, just for his own or her own amusement, and just to look cool in front of all the other juniors, who are crapping themselves anyway, because they're like probably next in life and next in line.
Yeah.
So, having experienced that, having this family member of you having experienced certain things, could that push that person to go and find a role model who can kind of fix those things, or show this person a different way? Does that make sense?
Are you asking that?
Yeah.
I hope so, because I fear that there's.
Do you want to be that one person?
You know what?
Jedi master.
I hope that I have those traits and attributes, but I still have to, I'm still trying to develop myself, you know, and I'm not in that person's life enough at the moment. So even if I was, I don't know how much of an impact I would have. But that desire to seek out someone, I hope that is there, because the fear is, and I've seen it with some people, they just get into really negative loops, cycles of behavior that ultimately spiral downwards, and they get to a stage where they're complacent and they're completely, it's not they're not content or satisfied, it's just that they are just simply existing, and they
regard themselves to be worthless.
Some of these guys don't even know to think that. Yeah.
Wow.
They just believe it. I mean, they don't even I don't think they consciously believe it. They just sit at home watching YouTube videos, eating snacks, and not some of these guys, some of these people who I'm thinking, not this youngster. He's, mashallah, still got hope. But with a few other people I can think of, they haven't seen daylight in days.
Oh my God.
Just cooped up inside playing video games.
That actually sounds like our friend Bablu.
The feral one. We will get him on the podcast, because he is an interesting character.
Once we've managed to pull him out from his duvet.
Yeah, it might just be the podcast where us two are there and a bed in the middle, and he's just in bed
eating crisps.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, that's okay.
So yeah, I feel like this discussion is one where we're gonna have to probably revisit it at some point, innit?
Yeah, I think so, because it's such a big topic, and it's it's difficult. It's hard, isn't it? It's hard to kind of pin down how a role model has an influence in a person's life. Is that just a natural process, or is it an active thing, or an active process on part of the person who is at the receiving end of that role model?
Yeah.
But I truly think that role models, or looking up to people, is an important part of developing, especially for children. It's interesting because with with babies, their brains are small, but all the neurons are there. All the neurons that they will have until they're an adult is there. The only thing that is lacking is the connections between these neurons.
Wow.
And these connections are basically experiences, learning, blah, 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 blah. And then for at a certain month, I forgot which month it is, you get this explosion of connections between these neurons. And depending on what the child is experiencing, you get this mass culling of connections as well.
Yeah.
The ones that aren't being utilized or used, the pathways that aren't being fired through, will be culled.
Wow.
So it's very important, that, and sometimes parents take it to an extreme where they are bombarding a child with different stimuli, etc., which is a bit mad. But giving them a good experience, a holistic experience of life, of their environment is I think is very important. And the other thing is, I think with role models, the most important question, I think, is who is a good role model? And I don't have an answer for that. I can look at people and say that, I wouldn't like to be like these people.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there are a lot of children and a lot of young adults who are kind of looking at these people's what they're producing, and they do look up to them. And is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Does that the question is does that satisfy them? Does that fulfill their life? Does that fulfill their their desires, etc.? Is it a positive or a negative thing? For me, I wouldn't like to role model or model the behaviors some of these adolescents and some of these young people are kind of modeling with, but I may be wrong and they might be right.
Need to get a little bit of Joe Rogan in your life, bro.
You love Joe Rogan, bro.
I think I really, really probably do love Joe Rogan. No, do you know what it is, bro? Just to I know now we come full circle now. He has some amazing guests on his show. And we
have nobody. We're
gonna get Bablu.
We have Bablu. We have the Bablu.
He's not even here. But
I call him the fish boy.
Is he? Oh, I thought he was the feral one.
The feral. I don't know. It always changes.
Yeah. But
he's a man of many traits.
He is a man. He is the role model.
He is the.
I think people will fully get the joke after they meet him, innit?
Yeah. And,
I can't wait to have him on the show.
He has twins.
Mashallah.
Mashallah.
God bless him.
Bloody hell.
And him.
Oh my God. I have a
Look, bro, you're sidetracking, yeah?
Our other friend, he was telling me, I spoke to him today, and this was hilarious, and I was like, this my dream has come true.
What?
He was telling me how his daughter, she's 1 year old now, isn't she?
Wow, yeah.
She's 1. She's so feisty that he grabs her face and he'll be like, "Oh, what are you gonna do now?" And she'll just slap him.
Are you talking about Omar?
Yeah.
His daughter slaps him.
His daughter slaps him.
Oh, good for
her.
And
even I know, good on her, bruv.
Yeah.
She needs that type of,
Yeah, to survive. Slap him and run away. He won't be able to chase after her. So once she can run, that's it. She's cool.
But the thing is, she was saying that he was telling me that his son, he's so innocent and quiet.
Oh,
so he's the opposite.
Yeah.
And I was just telling him, you know what? I just wish that she grows up and she just eggs him on, and she's like, she tells him, she bullies him.
She's a bad influence.
Yeah, tie him up.
Yeah, I think we can all root for that. If she will one day tie her father up, I'm all for that.
Yeah, we have to handle this guy, tie him up.
Bruv, one time I was in his house, Omar's house.
Yeah.
And I was telling
he's not going to appreciate
this. His son was playing with me.
Yeah.
So he was like, me and him were playing, me and his son, and he was upstairs, and I convinced his son that his dad was a dinosaur. I was like, your dad's a dinosaur. When his dad started coming down the stairs, boom, 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 he's like, dinosaur.
That's hilarious.
Kids, it's amazing how you can influence kids, man. Bruv, it's my dinner time's coming, isn't it?
Oh man.
Shall we wrap this up?
Yeah.
This is the longest one we've done yet. 1 hour and 15 minutes.
Oh my god.
I know.
And I felt like I couldn't speak. You know, there was nothing that I could talk about. It's like it's such a heavy and long subject.
It's heavy, yeah. And I really feel like, not to go on and on, but it seems to be incredibly important right now, especially looking at the people who I have in my life who are going through adolescence. And even for us to some degree, like, I'm sure there's areas of ourselves which we need to like really address because of the fact that we had these gaps in our relationship with our parents and that generation, because of the fact that they'd come from a whole different, you know, I mean, that's like a whole different discussion. But do you want to, any last words you want to end with?
Nah, bruv.
Nah, bruv. All right. So, yeah, if you guys listen to this on Apple Podcast or on Google Podcast, then please give us a review and share it with your friends and family, inshallah. If you watched it on YouTube, then comment. I'm sure there's like a host of stuff we said that people will probably be commenting about, all 10 of the people who watch this. And
won't be replying back.
we probably won't reply back.
Sorry.
We'll try and reply back.
We just, yeah.
I mean, you're incredibly busy. I'll probably do it. So, yeah, see you next time. Well, hopefully we have the feral one.
The feral one.
What
the
did you
fish
call him?
boy.
The fish boy.
The fish boy.